Hello everyone. So in today's class we are going to do a quick revision of chapter 1, Advent of the Europeans to India. So first of all, we know that the Portuguese were the first pioneers who started finding new routes, and they were the first to come to India. Okay, in 1498 Vasco da Gama reached India. Then later on, gradually English started coming to India. Francis Drake, Ralph Fitz, Dan Johannes, Mildenhall, they came to India. They started appealing, or they started writing letters to the Mughal emperor. Okay, so for what? To start trade in India. So when you say Europeans, they does not mean only the English but also Portuguese, Dutch, English, French, everyone who came to India during this period of time. They started trade with India. Okay, and it is another thing that later on English were successful in establishing their trade in India. So when English first came to India, Elizabeth was the Queen of England. During that time, Captain William Hawkins, okay, he visited the court of Emperor Jahangir. During the time what 1608, and during that time King James once sent a letter to the Mughal emperor. So here we can see that they were trying to earn some trade privileges from the Mughal emperors, okay, uh, for at least 2 years. But although Jahangir didn't give any permission to Captain Hawkins, okay. Secondly, Thomas Roe came. Although full permission was not granted, but still Jahangir granted the permission that English merchants can establish factories at Surat. So we already know that the company founded a trade center in 1611 in Machilipatnam, second trade center in Armagao. Then later on this trade center was shifted, okay, and it was to shifted to a nearby place of Madras, and it was renamed as Fort St. George. So once they established trade centers, what happened? They began to capture the trade in India. Okay, they began to gain more profit with the trade in India. And during that time, Robert Clive, who was the company's servant, he was one of the most important person, because during his time the company got legal sanction as ruling power in India. Okay, so see the difference. First of all, they came as trading power, and later on they got ruling power in India. So how these powers they got? By Treaty of Allahabad. Okay, dual government was introduced by the emperor. So through all this, like the Diwani right they got. Okay, through all this the company gradually they tried to grab the politics of India. That means they gradually came into power. Okay, earlier Mughals were ruling, but now gradually you will see British coming into power. So up to here what we see, that the company was getting power. Okay, so now at one point of time company was ruling, okay, through many policies they were trying to rule. Through many policies they were trying to extend their rule in India. Okay, so through all, as a result of all this, what happened? Those unsatisfied, those people, Indian people who were unsatisfied, okay, they rose into revolt, and that revolt was revolt of 1857, or what we say, Sepoy Mutiny. So as a result of Sepoy Mutiny, what happened? People of India, as they revolted against the British, that means East India Company, okay, company's rule, they want their Mughal rule back in power. Okay, so as a result of this revolt, what happened? There were some constitutional changes, okay, as well as some social changes in the Indian environment. So what constitutional changes were brought? Okay, the Queen of England, what kind of constitutional changes they brought in the administration of India? Okay, those things we will see. So first of all, what changes came? That company's power to rule in India ended. So who got the power now? Directly the queen. Understood? Now the crown will directly rule India, not the company. Company will uh, be doing the trade businesses. It was true. Which act all these changes were brought, constitutional changes were brought under? The Act of 1858. This act is called Government of India Act 1858. And by this Government of India Act, Governor General, he although retained the supreme head, that means he was the supreme head of the Indian administration. Okay, viceroy, a viceroy was position was created. Okay, he was given the title viceroy. Viceroy means what? He was the representative of the crown. Okay, this kind of constitutional changes were brought under the Act of 1858. So some social changes can be seen as a result of the Sepoy mutiny, that some educated Indians, they became aware that they should be first of all self-established. Okay, people of India should be self-established in order to fight against the British. They also have to get some touch of modernity. They have to be well educated. All these things have changes have to be brought in Indian society. Okay, these things, this kind of social changes we can see as a result of this revolt. Okay, in the next chapter we are going to see what kind of social reforms are going on during this time, during this British period. What kind of social reforms to reform Indian minds, all these things, all these changes were going on during that time. So after this we see that, as we have seen, that as a result of 1858 act, the Queen of England got the direct rule. Okay, so during Queen's rule, what kind of changes were there, what kind of policies were bought? Okay, all this we will see under Queen's rule, that means under the crown's direct rule. So Lord Canning was the new viceroy. Okay, he was the last governor general. As we have seen that the governor general position was changed to viceroy, so Lord Canning was being the governor general during that time. And as during that time governor general's position was changed to viceroy, Canning was the first viceroy. His position, he was in position and he was the first viceroy under the crown. So, under his rule, under the Viceroy's rule, what kind of changes were there in India? You will see imposition of income taxes for the first time in India. Okay, so educational, in educational departments there will be some changes. Okay, Lord Canning also brought some organizational changes in the army, in the educational department. Charles Wood's policies. Okay, Charles Wood was sent to India. Wood's dispatch, as you know, was sent to India. Okay, educational departments in each state under one secretary. Okay, to improve the education system. So Indian Councils Act of 1861 was introduced after that. Okay, under this act what happened? There was changes in the central administration and provincial administration. Okay, so in the central administration what happened? In the central administration you will see changes in the legislative body as well as in the executive body. Okay, these two bodies were formed, where you will see including members, or in these bodies you will see members from India also. Okay, prior to this there was no such policies that Indians can be the members of these administrative bodies. So this distance between the that means Indians and the So in the legislative body there will be minimum 6 to maximum 12 members, okay, and half of the members will be non-official members. And what was the term of the non-official members? Term of office is 2 years, okay. And in this non-official branch you can see either there will be Englishmen or native people. Native people, that means residing in India, Englishmen residing in India. And the Indians also who got a place in this Central Legislative Assembly, the most important ones, okay, they were the first ones to get this chance, and their names were Raja Bahadur Dhinkar Rao, okay, Raja Bahadur Narendra Singh, Raja Bahadur Deonarayan. These were the titles they earned. Raja Bahadur, okay, Dhinkar Rao, Narendra Singh, Deonarayan. They were most important, prominent, because they were the first ones to get chance in the legislative assembly of the central administration. They were the first Indians. The central legislative assembly, it has the power to enact laws, and laws of what kind of laws? Like revenue, finance, okay, protection of defense force, then protection of territories of native Indian states, okay, British occupied Indian states. So all these were under the, that means on all these sides they can make or enact laws, okay. But you can see that although the legislative body had this kinds of power, but the viceroy, okay, viceroy has the ultimate power whether to cancel any law. That means he has the power to override or any kind of suggestion or any proposed law of the legislative assembly if required. So this is very important, because although the legislative body was formed, it has so much powers, but the ultimate power was in the hands of the viceroy. So let us come to the executive council, okay. Executive council, you can see 5 members here. 3 members were nominated by Secretary of State. Other 2 members were nominated by the British Parliament, and our other 2 were, one is legal and the one is financial member. So it was the first time that Lord Canning introduced this kind of portfolio uh, bodies in the administrative system, okay. Cabinet system of government. That means one group of office will be there to look after certain affairs of the country. So this kind of cabinet system was introduced for the first time by Lord Canning. This is very important. So in provincial levels also this kind of changes were there, like previously we have seen in the central administration. In provincial administration there was changes in legislative and executive bodies. So legislative councils in provincial levels were created in the Bengal province, Northwestern Frontier province, and Punjab, okay, and also in Bengal. Although these bodies were created in provincial level, but you can see that the Governor General of Bengal had the ultimate powers, okay. That means these bodies, these legislative bodies powers were limited. So next here is local self-government. Giving local self-government is, you can say this, that Indians got the first taste of freedom, okay. It was not given, local self-government was not given to India by any kind of act, but through a resolution in the year 1882, okay. And it was granted by Lord Ripon, and that is why he is called the father of local self-government in India. What is local self-government? That means what are the duties of these local self-governments? They look problems at the local level, okay, and they solve the problems at this level. But that means local self-government, they look after the problems in the local level and they try to solve it. And what kind of local problems? Like drainage, road maintenance, birth records, date records, all this record maintenance done locally in the provinces or in the local self governments are to look after these duties, okay. This cannot be properly dealt by the state or central governments. These kind of activities like maintaining the drainage system of every area in India, this cannot be done by the central government, okay. That is why local self government bodies were created. Okay, so local self-government in India refers to governmental jurisdictions below the level of the state. Understood? So Lord Ripon instructed these resolutions on local self-government that it should be implemented all over India. Okay, local boards were to be established in district levels, and in Assam, even at subdivisional level also local boards were established. Okay, so like rural areas, the town areas also were brought under this local self-government. Okay, that means everywhere in every area of India, in that means up to wherever this local self-government new policies were implemented, every places were under some local board which will look after that particular area locally. Okay, so by this resolution on local self government of 1882, never said that in this 1882 was an act, it was a resolution. Okay, by the resolution on this local self government of 1882, town committees and municipal boards were formed in urban areas. Okay, in urban areas town committees and municipal boards were formed, like even today we have. Although Lord Ripon supported this local self-government idea, he wanted to implement everywhere. Also, what happened that means Lord Ripon wanted that this Indians can get some education of politics, okay, through this local self-governance by working in this local self-governance. So most of the other Britishers of this English government, their attitude was different. Their attitude was colonial. That means they were colonizers in India. Their attitude was colonial, and they never wanted Ripon to implement this local self-government all over India. Okay, some resistance was offered to Ripon in executing his ideas completely. Okay, completely he was not successful, but later on gradually local self-governments came. But this kind of practical thinkings, this kind of practical thoughts of Lord Ripon, okay, these thoughts carried the new message to Indian administration, because for the first time he brought local self-government under democratic system. Why it is said under democratic system? Because 75% of the members were to be appointed through election. Okay, that means there was a provision that this town committees and municipal boards, their members, 75% were to be, that means out of all the members, 75% were to be appointed through election process. And election process is obviously a democratic system. Like in today's democratic India, we vote for our representatives. Elections take place, yes or no? So Indians got this taste of governance under democratic system for the first time, just because of this kind of broad thinking of Lord Ripon. Local self-government of Lord Ripon is no doubt a important part in the history of India, British. That means of the British period. Okay, next comes the Indianization of civil services. So what we have learned from here, Indianization means, what is in first of all, what is Indianization? It is a act, okay, or a result of Indianizing. Okay, that means in India it was not like that civil services were not present before coming of the British. It was there from ancient times. Civil services were there in India. Okay, later on we will see what is civil services, but Indianizing it means what? After coming of the British, most of the civil services were civil service activities or any kind of work of civil works that were under the British. So there were some demands of the educated Indians to Indianize these positions. Okay, that means more Indian people should get chance in this position, civil service position. That is Indianization practically. So the practice towards the end of the British rule, okay, of promoting Indian people to more senior positions in the civil services. Understood? This is Indianization. Indianization of civil services. So civil services, you can see that it was during different phases of Indian administration it was present. So what is civil services? It is a body of professional. Okay, they are full-time officials employed. Uh, what to handle? To handle civil affairs in a non-political capacity. Understood? They are officers. They are professional officers. They will handle civil uh, affairs by in non-political capacity. That means there will be no political orders or holdings. It will be their own, under their own capacity. They will maintain, they will look after the civil affairs. Okay, so this, in this part, Indianization of civil services, as we have already discussed in our audio classes, here you will see the, I will quickly give a review or revisit to the main points that through what processes Indianization took place. This part is really to memorize, because many acts were there. Okay, many committees came, many commissions came. It was a very long process. Indianization of civil services was a long process. Okay, first of all came Charter Act of 1853, then the Macaulay Committee, Atchison Committee, Public Service Commission. Okay, in 1912, then the Government of India Act 1919. During that, in the 1919, the same year, the Montego Chelmsford uh, came, then the Lee Commission, then finally the Government of India Act 1935. So by this 1853, provision for open competition. Okay, there was an act provided for the appointment of the members, okay, of covenanted civil services on the basis of suitable competitive examination. Okay, so the Macaulay Committee gave that there should be permanent civil service based on merit based system through competitive entry examinations. Okay, this was the thing of Macaulay Committee. They said that it should be under merit based system. Okay, the permanent civil service, and there should be competitive examination, okay, of all British subjects. So earlier there was a system like nomination. There was a patronage based system, as we have already discussed. There was a patronage based bureaucracy system. This should be abolished. According to Macaulay Committee, this should be abolished. Okay, uh, obviously all the recommendation of Macaulay Committee were not applied during this time. So later on we will see through which acts and commissions and committees, slowly and gradually, the Indianization took place. So one thing, although the 1853 Act allowed the Indians to sit in examination, but the problem is that the examination was held in England. Okay, and by the 1865, the upper age limit of candidate. That means upper age limit. That means what was the upper age limit of the candidates to appear at the civil service examination? It was 22 years. Okay, later it was made 21 years, and the Viceroy Lord Lytton, he reduced it to 19 years. But if this would be the upper age, that means above this age no one can apply in the civil services. So that is why this reducing the age was opposed by Surendranath Banerjee. Okay, he sent the lawyer to England. Finally, as a result of this opposition, the age was again uh, made 22 years. Again, in Indian National Congress, they demanded that civil service examination should not only be held in England but also simultaneously. That means at the same time it should be held in India. Because the problem is that not every Indian could go to England and apply for the appear the examination. So in 1886, the Atchison Commission was formed. Okay, so in Lord Dufferin in 1886, first of all, okay, he formed the Public Service Commission to examine the whole issue. That means to look after the whole issue of Indianizing the civil services. So what more can be done. Okay, he created a commission under the leadership of the then governor of Punjab. He was the lieutenant governor of Punjab. His name was Charles Atchison. Okay, so that the Indians can get employment in public services. So it gives some kind of recommendations. So what were the recommendations of the Atchison Commission? First of all, who formed the Atchison Commission? Formed by Lord Dufferin. Okay, so to look after what issue? To look after entire public, a public service commission was formed. That is Atchison, under Atchison Commission. So to look after the entire issue of Indianizing the civil services, so that more and more Indians can get employment in the public service. So this Atchison Commission gave some recommendations what can be done to Indianize the civil services. So there was a three-tier classification. Okay, first of all, imperial, provincial, then subordinate civil services. Okay, the recommendation was that imperial civil services exams should be held in London. That means th- this commission uh, divided it into three categories. In imperial, there will be Englishmen. In provincial civil services, Indians. Subordinate civil services, also Indians. So those imperial positions, those who will be in imperial civil services, their examination to be uh, done in England, and those provincial and subordinate civil services exams to be held in India. Okay, the first one to be held in England, then the imperial one. Imperial, who will be there in imperial? Englishmen will be there. Okay, they will be the applicants of the imperial civil services, and below that the provincial and the subordinate civil services, Indians will be appointed there, and these examinations of provincial and subordinate civil services to be held in India. Okay, but you can see that all of these recommendations, okay, were not adopted and executed. Many more recommendations were given, but these were the important ones. And although they gave recommendations, Atchison Commission, they gave some kind of recommendations, everything was not adopted. Only some of the recommendations were adopted and executed. Again in 1919, as I have said, that Montego-Chelmsford report came. Okay, there they accepted the demand of Indianization of civil services, higher civil services posts. Okay, so accordingly there was a provision. It was made in the Government of India Act 1919. What was the provision there? It divided the imperial civil services into all India and central civil services. Okay, and promised that 1.5% of the total Indians will be appointed there, and this 1.5% will not remain the same every year. It will be increasing every year. Okay, 1.5% of the total Indians will be there, and it will be increasing every year. So from 1922 onwards, ICS exams were held in India. So Lee Commission came in 1923. So what changes came under Lee Commission? It formed the Lee Commission formed to implement the recommendations of the Montego-Chelmsford report and Government of India Act 1919. So why Lee Commission was formed? To implement the recommendations that was given in 1919 by Montego-Chelmsford report and Government of India Act 1919. They gave some kind of recommendations, and those recommendations to be implemented by the Lee Commission in 1923. Okay, they first of all, before implementing, it also recommended that a public service commission in India should be set up. Public service commission, as today we have public service commissions in India to look after the examinations of the civil services. Okay, and raise the number of Indians in the post of civil service by 50% within 50 years. This was where to important recommendations of Lee Commission. Okay, then came Government of India Act 1935. It declared the formation of federal state in India. Federal government, as we know, form elected governments in provinces. In the provincial level, the government bodies, okay, provincial governments, there will be elected government, election will be there, okay, provided the establishment of public service commission in each province. This is one important point of the Government of India Act 1935. First is federal, that then next is elected governments, and third is the public service commission. Not only centrally will be there, each province also there will be public service commission to look after the examinations, or provincially, okay. Is where the changes up to the British period, and after independence, we know now how all India level competitive examinations take place under UPSC, what Union Public Service Commission, okay. All India level competitive examinations were introduced, okay. Then in state level we see SPSC, State Public Service Commissions have been formed. So this, in this way, slowly and gradually we see how how civil services positions were Indianized through how many acts. These things are very important. You should go through the book properly, listen to the audios 2-3 times, and make sure that you write the points in serially. You make a flowchart or write the points so that it remains in your mind. These things are to be memorized. So this, in which year what commission came, what commission brought what kind of changes, all these are to be memorized, and the entire thing should be understood conceptually. So thank you so much. We have done a quick revision of this chapter 1.